We are on week 7 of vocabulary. These words are also coming from Animal Senses, the same text where your vocabulary came from last week. However, when you look at the list, you can see there are 6 new words that we are focusing on this week. So the first one we want to take a look at is nosing around. Nosing around means snooping or searching in a sneaky way. This is actually an idiom, and remember, an idiom is an expression or phrase that means something different from what it appears to mean. So nosing around does not necessarily mean the person is moving their nose around. No, it means that the person is snooping. The author says, nosing around comes naturally to us. She's making a joke because we naturally use our noses to investigate our world. We're going to play a quick game. Is Milton nosing around? So remember, Milton is our make-believe 4th grader. So I'm going to give you a scenario and you decide whether or not he is nosing around. Remember, that means snooping. In the first example, Milton wonders what his friend Jeff brought to school for lunch. So without asking, he looks inside Jeff's lunchbox. Is Milton nosing around? Why or why not? Right, I think we can agree that he's definitely nosing around because he did this without asking his friend, and he's just going ahead and looking in his lunchbox. Let's look at the second example. Milton wants to play a board game during free time. He asks his teacher for permission, and then he looks through the board games to find the game he wants. Is Milton nosing around in this example? Why or why not? Right, he's not nosing around because he did ask his teacher permission and she told him that he was more than welcome to go and find the game. Let's look at the last example. Milton is curious to know what his sister has been writing in her diary, so when his sister is away, he reads her diary. Is Milton nosing around in this example? Why or why not? I think we can all agree that Milton is nosing around here because we know our background knowledge tells us that a diary includes very personal and private information. His sister would probably not like him looking around through her diary. The next word we want to talk about this week is edible, and edible means that something is safe to eat. An example where we saw this in the text was found on pages 34 and 35. Animals use their sense of touch to find food that is edible or safe to eat. The opposite of that word includes that prefix "n". Remember, a prefix is a word part that's added to the beginning of a word to change the meaning of the root. So "n" means not, therefore inedible means not safe to eat. So these two words are antonyms or opposites. Now we're going to play a game called edible or inedible. I'm going to describe a food for you and you will decide whether it is edible, safe to eat, or inedible. Then explain why or why not. Take a look at the first example. The apple is edible or inedible because. If you have someone next to you, you can turn and talk or think to yourself. Let's look at example number 2, edible or inedible. A piece of pizza that has been sitting on the kitchen counter for 3 days. If you have someone next to you, you can turn and talk or think to yourself. Let's look at the last example here, edible or inedible. These are pieces of popcorn here in this picture. A piece of popcorn you find under your sofa. The popcorn is edible or inedible because, go ahead. Okay, so the last thing we want to talk about, this is not necessarily one of our vocabulary words, but sometimes we include extra pieces in here for you guys. So now we're going to introduce you to something called a pun. So what is a pun? It is a play on words. For example, let's look at this one. A bicycle can't stand on its own because it is too tired. So what is it that makes that funny? Right, if a bicycle has 2 tires and we're wondering why it can't stand on its own because it's too tired. So they played on these words right here, too and tired. Let's look at another example. I wondered why the baseball was getting bigger, then it hit me. Right, we know kind of when you say like then it hit me, it means like then you realize something, but if you're here and the baseball's getting closer and getting bigger, then it actually means that it's going to hit you. Let's look at the third example. If a clock is hungry, does it go back 4 seconds? Right, so what makes this funny is 4 seconds, meaning are we going back for another round of food, but the way that it's spelled indicates, because it is a clock, that it's referring to time passing by in seconds. What about this one? How do you fix a broken tomato? With tomato paste. Did you hear about the man whose whole left side was cut off? He is all right now. All right, that wraps up day 1. We'll see you back tomorrow for day 2.